I got this game for $1.75 at the local thrift store, and, I cracked it open, and it was missing 2 6-sided dice, which I could replace almost instantaneously with dice that I just had lying around the house. And it was missing the one baddie, the master, but I could go onto the internet and just print a copy of that, and I threw it in the box. And then years later, after I mentioned this to somebody and said, yeah, no, I've got a copy, it's great, it's only $1.75, we've played it, and somebody said, I got a copy that's like about half extent, so any parts you need, just what do you need? And I said, I don't have the 2 blue dice, but I really don't need them, so give them to somebody who needs them, and I don't have the MasterCard. And he's like, send me your address. And he just mailed me those parts. Not only did he mail me those parts, but he mailed me the stand-up card for the master at no additional charge, just to make sure he was sending me the right parts. So I got to figure out who this guy is. I emailed with him a couple of times and thank him again, because now I have this complete set of Buffy, which is beat to shreds, but it does everything it needs to do, and it cost me $1.75.
I was about to say, you made it almost 2 minutes without saying what the name of the game was.
I know, but everybody's going to be excited, because how on earth would they know what the name of the game was, Stephen? Unless, of course, they read the name of the podcast before they hit the play button.
I mean, sure, but it's good protocol or good podcasting etiquette to go ahead and name it out.
Name the game every once in a while. And the name of this game is Buffy the Vampire Slayer, the game. Because there's about 3 or 4 Buffy games, all of which have names that are almost exactly the same.
See, you could have told me anything, I would believe you, because it actually says Buffy the Vampire Slayer, the game, the Book of Rules is the rule book.
See, it's those nice little flourishes. That's the kind of thing that, a Rob Daviau production sort of has. And
can I see the front of that box, please?
Yes, you can see the front of this box.
Is this a Rob Daviau joint?
Okay. This one, you can still get this.
Guy, who's the guy who did HeroScape with him? Whose name is escaping me, is like really famous for...
No, not Kobe Douch.
Kobe, no, it's
He was a HeroScape guy.
I cannot think of this guy's name.
There's a copy of this game on eBay for $1.99.
Yeah, this is
$18.45 shipping and handling. There is also a new one, brand new, sealed, rare, for $62.99 on eBay.
And I could see if you're into foo-foo, hoity-toity, sleeve all the cards kind of games, I could see you spending $60 on this, and God knows it's a whole lot better than a lot of other games that are coming out right now that cost that kind of money. So this is a pulpy game. They made tens of thousands of copies of this game. There are thrift stores all across America. I found one in Canada when I was up there just browsing through a Goodwill. So these are all over the place. They're not particularly hard to find, and the condition is going to be a little bit different from game to game, and I may have to look it up. Sorry about that. Because I cannot believe I cannot remember the guy's name.
It's not in the rule book, so I'm going to check BGG real quick.
You will, the minute you read it out, you'll be like, oh, actually, I think 3 people are in on this game, but the other name is the other famous designer that Rob Daviau worked with when he was working for Milton Bradley and was doing these sorts of games. So anyway, this is Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
Craig Van Ness.
Craig Van Ness, thank you very much.
And Bill Sabram.
My apologies, Craig and Bill, for not having your names off the top of my head. That's completely unacceptable for a game of this level of quality.
And obviously, my wife will have already told us who the designers are.
So we'll just look stupid for no reason.
I mean, it's the magic of editing, right?
Let's hope. At least make me look like I struggled for a little bit less. So this is Buffy set up on the table, and this is a beat copy that has probably been played 100 times, and I think 30 or 40 of them have been me. So this copy, everybody has certainly gotten their money's worth out of it, and but it came complete. Every card was in here. The first thing I did was count the cards. When I saw all the cards, I'm okay, I'm buying it, and off I went, and got this at a great price. As far as I'm concerned, this is the single best pulp production game ever produced. This is a mass market game. This thing is just entirely entertaining, and there's every character's got their own little thing, which usually I grind on about asymmetry not being terribly exciting, but in this game it works, and they blend in with the characters. Anybody who's watched a television show can sit there and recognize who these people are and understand why they have the special abilities they do. There's a lot of running around the map.
They're not terribly intrusive special abilities.
No, they
don't really change how...
Right, little facets.
Yeah. I think the only one who has a rule that actually changes kind of how they work is
Oz with the werewolf. Yeah.
Who's a werewolf, but everybody else is just kind of better at a certain aspect of the game.
It's like who can hold
interact
what
differently.
type of cards. Like
Yeah, and the
Oz
dice
can
you
hold
roll.
4 cards because he can change into the werewolf, but
he loses
gets
his
one
cards.
weapon, 1 help, 1 research, and 1 artifact. Where I'm looking over at
Look at Willow.
Willow, who can have
3
2
magic.
research cards.
Well, and she has 3 magic and
Those are her
1
dice,
Oh,
yeah.
those are her dice. Excuse me. Yes.
I mean, you say this is a well-used, well-worn game. The only thing that's looks rough on this is the little podium they have in the
Podium
middle.
in the middle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Everything else, I mean, I'm not seeing any folded, dog-eared, cornered. I mean, the cards are a little bent because they've been held
Yeah.
a lot.
Yeah. No, it's fully playable. There's no doubt about that.
I mean, if I opened up a game and it had every stand in it, everybody's standing up, moving around the board there. The board itself, there's no rips, tears. It lays flat on the table. I mean, the board box itself looks more wear and tear than anything that's inside of it, except that little podium in the middle.
I mean, that's typical of the Hasbro, Milton Bradley type of productions because they're not big, sturdy cardboard boxes like hobby gamers demand. This was, as John mentioned, a pretty standard mass market offering that just happens to play like a hobby game.
Yeah.
So, and that's kind of like Rob Daviau and Craig Van Ness. That's kind of like what they brought to Hasbro at that time.
Yes. They were able to take these more esoteric features of modern games and make them fully palatable even to casual players that weren't accustomed to these sort of things. And what I think is really beautiful about this game is the clearly they watched the first 4 seasons of Buffy the Vampire Slayer because each of the 4 scenarios that come with the game are very well matched to those first 4 seasons of the television show, which is starting to look its age. It's now been out for about 25 years, but it's a lighthearted TV show about murdering vampires. So I mean they managed to pull it off on the television show as well, and the game manages to carry that spirit in, where there's real drama and it's real excitement, but at the same time there's always a lightness to it. The game never gets heavy or never gets nasty.
So you want to give us the basic running gear so that because it's been a while since I've played it. I know y'all have played it pretty recently.
We played it in
John
May.
and I played this
My
pretty
last time probably was with you. It's
Okay,
been
so-
quite a few years.
Yeah, John and I played this pretty extensively in Delaware.
Yeah, I think we played 5 or 6 times.
Ooh,
over
at
a period of
least.
2 nights.
Yeah, at least.
So,
And
this-
I'm sorry. So just the fact that you played it multiple times at our gaming weekend where we had piles
and piles of games to choose from.
it speaks volumes of just the amount of fun that you guys are having with this.
Yeah.
Because I mean, we had a lot of different games available, and for any game to get repeated plays would be something, but for one to get multiple repeated
Yeah,
plays,
and we were knocking out play after play after play one
We did.
night, and then the following night we played a few more after that.
We
Is
did.
there
It
a good
was-
amount of comedic value to
Oh,
it?
for sure.
Yeah.
Okay, so
This
you
game
get a little
could-
punchy, you
this-
get a little tired. This is
Oh,
a
this
good
was
game.
this was the game we brought out at the end of the evening. We're like, okay, we're winding down. We probably don't have time or like the mental acuity for another hour and a half, 2 hour game.
Yeah.
But Buffy, you can knock out. We played that many times in maybe 2 hours.
Yeah, maybe 20 or 30 minutes a game tops.
Yeah, they're games that will end. You can end this game turn one.
which is funny because
Like,
when
not
I was
even-
looking up Craig's name,
Like,
BGG has this listed as a 90-minute game, and I don't
No
think
way.
I don't think it's ever gone
No,
90 minutes, an
no.
hour and a half.
This game could literally end on the first action if the dice are kind.
yeah, that's going to be.
No, it could.
It
It
could.
could.
Yeah, but I think the chances of you bumping into that are relatively.
But it happened, and at Delaware, it happened
on the very first player's turn.
Not the very first action, but before. Or no, it did on the first turn because there was one time I turned Buffy, turn one, and that was the objective. So I won turn one by turning Buffy into a vampire.
Yeah, Buffy
Just
needed to
'cause-
run away.
Well, she couldn't. The bad guy goes first.
Yeah. Okay. So basic running gear of the game. one person is playing the baddies, and there's like a king baddie. You're the mayor, you're the master, you're whatever, and it's the baddies that were essentially in the first 4 seasons of the television show when it came out. And they have vampires, they have demons, they have their own little like sidekick baddies that help them out. But that one person is controlling all of the evil, so it's everybody else against that bad guy or bad gal, depending.
Sorry, go ahead.
And so the rest of us are playing the main characters, the high school kids from Buffy the Vampire Slayer, which is Buffy, who is obviously is the vampire slayer who spikes people with wooden stakes and destroys vampires that way. She has a friend who's a werewolf. She has a friend that is toying around with magic, so she's becoming a wizard or a witch, I suppose, depending. And then she's got this guy Xander, who's just sort of just kind of an all-around good guy, but he manages to like get the townspeople to help, and he brings those into the picture as well. And each side has specific goals. So the bad guy will say, turn Buffy into a vampire or whatever. They've got a particular goal that they're trying to meet. And the good guys have particular goals as well. And sometimes you need a special artifact in order to make something happen. And other times you need to kill the bad guy in order to make it happen. But that's what each of these scenarios is for. So before you start the game, once you have picked who your baddie is going to be, you review what your challenges are, and then off you go out onto the board and to do your things. And it's combat is super fast and super easy. You throw a certain amount of dice. You do what the dice tell you, and the dice are big and chunky and have it printed right on them, whether they hit you or not. And then at that point, you just everybody has hit points. You take your hit points. When you get down to 0, you're out. And before then, you get to do what you get to do. And every character has their own special abilities. So at certain phases of the moon, Oz turns into a werewolf. Suddenly he can move at double speed, and he gets healed, which is incredibly powerful if he was hurt.
He gets a lot of dice.
Yes, and when he is a werewolf, he is tough and fast. When he's not a werewolf, yeah, not so much. And there's a little thing in the center of the board that goes in a circle that shows the phase of the moon, and when that moon goes to full moon is when he turns into a werewolf. So that's the fun part about playing Oz, is about a quarter of the time you're going like crazy, shooting around and doing all kinds of things. Willow is trying to pick up these research cards, which allows her to have magic spells. So if you want to play the magic user-y person, then you're going to be Willow. Xander goes out and finds people to help out. He finds ways to support the rest of the group, and Buffy is the alpha predator. She's the warrior that goes after vampires and stakes them and brings them to a quick end. So she needs to find wooden objects. She can kill somebody with a wooden stake. She can kill somebody with chopsticks or something like that. Anything she can find that'll do the job. Plunges it into their heart, and that's the end of them. And meanwhile, the bad guy gets to draw from his own very special bad guy deck that does all sorts of nasty things that allows him to turn our characters into vampires, which really kind of sucks, but also do all sorts of other things as well. So there's regions on the board that are very much heavily favor one particular character and disfavor others, so picking your battle and where you want to be is a part of the game. The map is very open, and as far as I'm concerned, it just gives a tremendous amount of versatility. It's not uncommon for you to sneak up on somebody without them realizing it.
Yeah, and I think it's pretty neat. The map here is kind of like indicative of the town, and it feels kind of constrained, but all of the dots on the board are places where you can draw that kind of card.
Yeah.
Right? So if you're on a red dot, you can draw from the weapons deck. If you're on a yellow dot, you can draw from the research deck, etc. And there's 3 blue buildings. Those are houses, which means
People's
vampires
houses.
cannot enter them unless they get an invitation.
Do we have to mail that to them, or is it purple?
No, there's a special evil card I can play that will...
Okay. This board does, it seems to, it reminds me of Clue. I'm looking at this tunnel goes to the other side.
Yeah.
There's a secret room that goes here.
There's tunnels. There's sewers you can use as shortcuts with the right card.
Yep.
And it's got a lot
fun.
of information, but it seems pretty simple.
There's a lot of the time you'll be trying to figure out, okay, I need to go over there to do something, but I didn't roll high enough to get there, so where can I go along the way that I can still draw a card that's useful or might be safe or something?
Right, or if I'm a vampire that is not going to be exposed to the sky if it turns sunny.
Yes, because you can see sometimes it hits sunlight, and then bad things happen to vampires who are outside.
Yeah, so they have to get inside a building before that happens.
And the the phases of the moon, whenever a character takes a turn, they roll the blue dice, which is for movement, regardless of if they intend to move or not. And on those dice, it's a moon symbol.
Two moon symbols,
Is it 2 or just 1?
Well, one on each.
One per die.
Yeah, and when that symbol pops up, you advance the token that many steps through the phases of the moon. So that can happen very quickly, or it can happen very slowly. And it really kind of depends on how lucky you are.
Do we know what who the bad guy is, and what his goal is to start the game?
So I think, like John said, there's 4 different scenarios. For this one, I went with the most basic vampire one, where I'm playing as the Master and his 3 vampiric minions. My goal is to turn Buffy into a vampire. Your goal is to destroy the Master.
How convenient. I go after you?
Yeah.
And I'm standing right next to you?
Yes.
Okay.
I think we're ambushing Buffy. Oh, I'm sorry. Allow me to be specific. My goal is to destroy or sire Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
Yeah, so you're kind of in the midst of everything here, aren't you, Chris? Aren't you, Buffy?
Yeah, Buffy is, I think, about 8 tiles away from
right. So
3 of the 4 vampires.
Right, and you also roll a die which indicates how many who moves of your crew.
So I have 4 characters to control, but I roll this black die here, which only ever has 3 symbols on it. And sometimes only has 2, so I might not be able to move the Master at all. I might be able to move the Master and one other guy. It depends on what I roll.
I would just like for you to know that I kill vampires. That's my job.
My quote is, so you're the new Slayer? You're prettier than the last one.
My quote is, I start with a help card. Oh, no, wait a minute. That's not it. I laugh in the face of danger, and then I hide until it goes away. So that's kind of the lighthearted aspect of the game.
That's Xander.
Yes.
And Oz's, the band is moving towards the sound where we don't suck. So I guess Oz was in a band.
He is in a band, yes.
Yeah, I did not watch this show religiously. I watched it when it was on and nothing else was on, so I'm familiar with what's going on, but I have no idea what any of the through lines on the story are. So
Willow's tagline is, I don't want to be our only hope. I crumble under pressure.
Well, last time she did okay. So at this point, I think we've got everything we need out on the table and all ready to go.
yeah. So let's get a slaying and see what happens.
All right, then.
Down with it.
John would just like to brag about being the hero.
John would like to mention that he was the hero in this story.
Willow punched the Master to death.
With her itty-bitty fist.
And she's like 5'2", 119 pounds.
Over several rounds.
Yes.
Even.
Yeah,
Like,
it
he
was
just
to the point
stood
where
there and took
it was
it.
time to close the deal, man. Just showed up and just started. I had a broken shovel handle that I could beat him over the head with, and that was enough to do it. Actually, the second time it was just open hand because that's a discard after use. Apparently, you break your shovel handle a second time, and then that's the end of it. So. But yeah, this was I'll be honest with you, Sam. I thought you were going to crush us early in the game. You just sort of seemed to have the upper hand, and Buffy was getting hurt, and Willow was good for nothing. You turned Xander, so he was out of the game, and it just looked like the good guys were going to get crushed.
I mean, there was definitely a good kind of swing about halfway through where, you know, you dusted Xander, you dusted Spike, Oz turned into a werewolf and just started tearing
in our darkest
things
hour.
apart.
Willow shone
and stayed a werewolf for a good long time.
He stayed a long werewolf for a long time, and then you healed, like Willow healed Buffy up entirely.
Healed Buffy completely.
Yeah.
I summoned
that
Veruca.
Really turned the tide.
And then you erased Veruca in one go.
Werewolf Oz erased Veruca. Yeah.
No, that wasn't Werewolf Oz. That was
I
Willow.
got her down.
I hit her with the
thinking
special
of Darla.
spell.
You're thinking of Darla.
Well, I wasted Spike for
You
sure.
wasted Spike, and then you hit
Darla.
You almost killed Darla and left her with 1 hit point.
Buffy took out
And
Darla.
then Buffy finished her off. Veruca got summoned in, showed up with the Hellmouth, and kind of bullied Willow and Buffy for a couple turns.
Yeah, a little bit.
And then
I had that monster spell.
The turn after she stopped being a werewolf and her health went way down, Willow just turned around and erased her.
Yeah, just 5, and that was the end of her.
Yeah,
Boom,
just one shot. It was great.
Like a shot. Yeah, so Willow did manage to get some spell cards that actually worked out pretty well, but Willow's always. I forget who said it. It's like, well, in theory, she moves as far as everybody else, but she just doesn't seem to. She seems to roll 2s, 3s, and 4s an awful lot.
That was my experience playing Willow in the past, where it's just like, okay, I'm just going to sit on this one spot because I can't get anywhere helpful.
And that's absurd. I mean, she's rolling the exact same dice as everybody else. I mean, we all know how that works.
But this game was not your typical game. It lasted a full 90 minutes, and Willow was moving.
Did it really last a full?
Would you rolled a 12?
No,
it was an hour and a little.
Minutes.
Yeah.
But I mean, Willow rolled. I mean, she was rolling high numbers. There were a couple times she rolled like a 2 or 3, but towards the end, she was rolling like 9, 12. I think you rolled.
And her she had a couple of big rolls, and then her fight dice, she was rolling a point of damage every single time.
I think it's because Willow really, really wants the yellow spaces to get the research cards, and those are a little more spread apart than the other ones.
Yeah, and I kind of wandered her off into the great empty space for yellow spots, which was not the smartest thing I could have done. So, but she came back around.
It did get you away from Drusilla.
It did.
Yeah, Drusilla actually showed up.
She was in this game?
I love playing Oz. Like, every time I've played this game, I think of the 3 or 4 times I've played him 2 or 3 times. And I really enjoy him, except for when he's not a werewolf. Angel and explosives together.
Right, and they get to roll like a dozen dice.
And they get turned into a werewolf. Because I had picked up explosives on one of my turns, and then got Angel the next turn. And I'm sitting there looking at this like, I can roll 7 fight dice and just really put a hurt on the master. And so I was like, cool, let's do it. Started walking towards him, and then I lost my mind and grew a bunch of fur. And like,
it was funny because the master
out
didn't
came
even
the
flinch.
moon.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
And when you become a werewolf, you drop everything you have. So there's explosives lying around on the street of Sunnydale, and Angel's sort of wandering around trying to figure out where his buddy went.
But it's not something that somebody else can go over and pick up.
Yeah.
Right. According to game rules, the card just goes away.
It's just discarded.
Yeah, it's not like you actually leave it on the ground.
Thematically, yes, it doesn't make sense, but mechanically, it's one of those things that you just kind of have to do.
Keep the game relatively simple. Yeah. And if you wanted to, you could cheat that. You could put a marker there and say, "Hey, that's where the explosives are." If somebody wants to swing by and grab them, but then at that point, you get the master grabbing onto explosives.
Right,
all kinds of crazy things could happen.
The master picks up the explosives and chucks them at Buffy.
God, do y'all remember when we would play Frag and that was a rule? Like when you got killed,
when you drop something,
you dropped everything, and then it's like a mad dash to go pick
up
the
thermonuclear bomb that's like sitting in the middle of the middle of the map.
That would make this game a little crazy.
That would make this game a little crazy. But just as if this game isn't a little crazy enough. But with the moon phases, and we had a couple of vampires get caught outside when the sun came out and get burned up, and we had 2 werewolves on the board, which I don't recall having 2 werewolves on the board
I think
before.
I summoned the one bad guy who was also a werewolf.
Yeah, and we had like lots of time with a full moon on the board, so those guys were doing their thing all the time, and like I said, Willow actually finished with fighting, which she's awful at, but she had good research cards. She got a couple of things. What I didn't allow, because Buffy was in trouble. Buffy was seriously hurt, and I managed to heal you back up to 12 points, and then suddenly you could come alive. You could be fearless because you had so many points you didn't have to worry about getting killed.
We also made that one crucial trade, which gave me the garlic.
Yes.
Which kept me from being turned. So the master and anybody, if they tried, weren't going to be able to.
It was annoying.
It took away one of your win cons, which
it did.
Yeah, and your other win condition is kill everyone?
My win conditions were either kill Buffy or turn Buffy.
Oh, so you'd have to kill her.
Turning is a bit easier than killing.
Yes.
You can do that, before you've chewed through all of her health, because she actually has 12 health, which is
she's tough.
More than most of the bad guys. Like not more than the big bosses, but more than most of the minions.
You got me down to 4, where I just turned wounded.
Yeah, and I was thinking, okay, so you got 4 health. I can probably kill you off. I might be able to win this. And then
because it was when I'm wounded, you only needed 1 fang.
Yeah, when you're at the wounded state, you only need 1 fang. So I thought there was a possibility it might happen for me, and then things just spiraled.
Yeah.
You started picking off the minions, and it was...
Because you came up beside me, you're like, hey, okay, I'll trade you this because it's really good for you. You got anything for me? And I'm like, oh, I've got this garlic, which means you'll never be turned into a vampire. And you're like, yeah, that's the way to go on that one.
That's a nice one.
It was interesting rolling. There's a black die you roll to see how many of the evil characters you get to move.
Mm-hmm.
And it's
And which ones?
And which ones, because you can roll, there's like a little symbol for the minions and a big symbol for the big bad guy. And there are only 2 faces of the 6-sided die that do not include the big bad guy moving. And I rolled them...
Over and over again.
So it was about 70% of the time.
Literally 800 times, like they say on the internet.
Yeah. And so the master did just kind of stand there and get punched in the face a lot because he couldn't move.
Yeah, there was the one point where me as Oz, like human Oz with 1 fight die.
Oh, you were trapped in the closet because the master was standing in front of you.
He's not a whole lot bigger than Willow.
I'm scared in the closet, just like digging around for like some kind of weapon, which is when I found like a steak.
You had a sword
and then
and a
somebody
steak
else's favorite steak, and it's like, why are there 2 different steaks? Because all steaks are just pointy sticks,
there's like 5 different steaks.
and they all do the same thing.
They all do the same thing.
Yeah,
And finally landed on a sword that gave
+1
me
damage.
+1 damage, so I
Every
was
time.
at least doing 1 damage every fight.
But it
So
was pretty funny because there were a good 4 or 5 turns where you were just stuck in a closet because
like,
the
what
master
can
was
I do?
just
Yeah.
But the master
standing
was-
there.
But it was funny. The master did say, "As soon as I move, son, I'll let you out."
Yeah, I was like, all right. As soon as the master gets another turn, he'll let you out of the room you're trapped in, and he just didn't get to move.
Yeah, but
he just stood there.
at the same time, you survived, and meanwhile, everybody else, it's like, okay, the master's not moving. Let's get over there and let's start doing our thing. And we could get 3 sides on him and start attacking
Yeah,
him.
and then he finally got out.
he had to move.
and was running, and he got caught in the sun, and that was rough.
yeah, had we paid more attention to the phases and where the sun shows up in the moon phases, whatever, we could have actually blocked a bunch of doorways and had him trapped in the sun.
And he would have burned 6 or 8 points worth of damage trying to
Yeah.
get out of
And that would have been, I think that would have been a hilarious victory for the good guys. If we just were like, nope, can't come in here. Nope, can't come in here. Oh, look at you.
Oh,
yeah,
darn it.
Watch him dancing around.
Yeah, I mean, I had a couple cards that would have, I think, changed things a bit. I had a summon card that didn't go off, and I had 2 change the moon, like summon eclipse cards that I just could not roll to get off.
Yes, you could not get the
I
magic
saw
to
the
work.
sun coming up, and I was like, okay, I need that to not be sunlight, and the dice just failed me.
So there's this dial in the middle that changes the moon phases depending on what you roll for your movement dice. So each of the 2 movement dice has one side that's got a moon on it. So you've got, this is pretty much a basic, you don't want to call it a war game, but it's a straight up combat game where you're running people around and you're banging into each other, and there's places that are safer and places that are worse, and there's places where you can pick up tools and buffs to your character. And in a lot of ways, it's kind of video gamey in that you wander around, grab stuff, and do your thing. But you have this other effect. You've got the effect of the moon phases, which makes some characters either much stronger or much weaker, or they can't be someplace. So you've got this extra kind of rub coming into the play that vampires need to be off the street at a particular time, and werewolves suddenly become much more powerful at a particular time, and then when you add on top of that the research, the help, and the weapons cards that have different effects, some of which really jump with each other. You may have somebody that can help, like Buffy's mom means you get to roll 2 extra dice, and if you've got a card that says, hey, if you roll 2 magic dice and come up big, then you do 10 points of damage. Suddenly you've got this monster combination of cards. So you have these little baby combos in the cards, along with this dial in the middle that's kind of throwing everything in different directions. It ends up making a much bigger sum of the parts. Each part is kind of adding a little something, but when you pull all the pieces together, the game kind of takes a life all its own.
Yeah, and I kind of invoked Frag earlier on about dropping equipment and whatever, but to me, this shares a lot of similarities with Frag because it's kind of like going around and picking up equipment and arming yourself, and then getting into the fray and actually like doing some damage with each other. Because in Frag there's ranged attacks, but typically you want to be up close because
hand to hand.
You get
that's where
you
get
better
your bonuses.
You get better odds and better damage. But
and here, with the exception of a few weapons, you need to be close, and the weapons get burned up. You use crossbow. Once you're out of crossbow bolts, you're done. Once you break your stake, you're done. You have to go get something else. So you have these moments. It's like, okay, now I'm on the attack. Now I got to get out. I got to get a weapon. I got to get an ally. I got to find something to help out. And so you start moving around, and everybody's character kind of waxes and wanes. Has times when they're strong and they're charging, and times when they're retreating. And how your opponent chooses to, because they can chase you down. If when you're empty, then suddenly they're going to come after you, and you have to sort of hope your buddies come and pick you up when that happens.
Yeah. So I think the point I was trying to make is this is like a very thematic and very narrative. Like, I don't want to say a version of Frag because it's not, but they kind of scratch the same itch.
Yeah, War on a Grid.
Yeah, it's War on a Grid. And, I mean, obviously, I think I could go either way, honestly. I like both games. It's been a long time since I've played either one of them, but I feel like the narrative that you're going to have, the story that you build as you play is going to be it's going to have much more depth when you play Buffy the Vampire Slayer. And like you said, the combo, like both of them can be combo-y, but I feel like with the different, it's not just weapons and armor as it is with Frag. It's weapons and armor, and then you get the allies that you can, the ally cards, and then the artifact cards, and then the magic cards, and then it's actually one versus many. So there's a lot of different things that just kind of build this, they build a deeper narrative.
Yeah, it's very easy to build a narrative out of this game, I've found, just because of the way the dice and the cards come together.
Yeah, and each character getting different kind of cards and specialties. I mean, I don't know. I watched the TV show casually. I don't know if you guys watched the TV show at all. Did you?
Very sparsely.
I saw the movie in the theater when it came out.
The original movie.
The original movie with Luke Perry, I think.
He was one of them. Yeah.
One of the guys, and was it Sarah Michelle Gellar in the movie?
It was not
too?
Sarah Michelle Gellar.
Some other woman, some other lady. I can't remember the name of.
So, my point being that even without having seen the film, you kind of get a feel for each of the characters based upon the way they were crafted in this game. You kind of understand. You could drop into a random Buffy episode after playing this game a couple of times and kind of know who Willow is, kind of know who Xander is, and they would sort of fit the bill for what this game has painted them as. So I think they did a great job, and of course, that crowd at Milton Bradley, I mean, they've got 3 or 4 games that really kind of came alive and had they can put an energy into a game that a lot of other people just, even though they're building a good game mechanically, they can't seem to make a game that will jump and come alive.
So kind of to that point, like, none of us are Buffy fans. We can pretty much say that. But Buffy is prevalent enough in the zeitgeist of pop culture that everybody is at least familiar with who these characters are.
Okay.
I mean, the parallel that I'm drawing is, say, like, so this is a game that almost lives or dies based on its theming. Like, there's not a lot of reskins that you could do on this.
Yeah, I agree.
And we played Battlestar not too long ago, and that's another game that lives or dies based on its theming.
Mm-hmm.
But the Battlestar property isn't as prevalent in the general zeitgeist.
Yeah, it's not as well known.
And so for people that haven't seen Battlestar, they may have heard of it or heard Dwight Schrute talk about it on The Office or whatever, but you really have to have at least a full season's worth of knowledge of that show to really be able to get the most out of
I agree.
Playing Battlestar Galactica. Now with Buffy, just having the tangential knowledge that most people have just because of the pop culture references is enough to be able to jump into this game and have a good time with it and really understand where everyone's coming from and why some of the characters are designed the way they are and interact with each other the way they do.
So the drawback is that this game is never going to get reprinted because Buffy's gotten old, and Hasbro owns the rights, and I'm sure
Does
has
it really
no
need to
interest.
get reprinted? Like you said, they made, 10,000 copies of it? And there's
probably
plenty of them in
100,000.
pawn shops. You can still get them brand new in the shrink wrap. And you said there's a couple different versions of this game?
Not
Well-
of this game. There are a bunch of Buffy games, which means that the IP is potentially up
It's
for
out
grab.
there. Yep. But Hasbro owns this particular
Hasbro
setup.
owns this, but I mean, I've already blue skied Restoration Games. I mean, they can.
Yeah,
you
but
can't.
Hasbro
Can't patent.
does not play nice.
You can't patent game mechanics. It would be easy enough to.
You certainly can. You're just drawing the eye of Sauron in your direction if you do that. And Hasbro's got more money than God. They can make your
Unless
life.
look-
it was to become popular again, they're not going to
I mean,
reprint this
Hasbro
game.
let go of HeroScape, so it's not out of the realm of possibility.
They let go of Hero. Oh, that's right. They did let go of HeroScape after it crashed and burned. You're right. So they did. So, but again, like Chris was saying, there's so many copies out there, and this is not a game where you need some pristine, beautiful copy. All right, go out and spend $5 on this game.
Yeah.
Don't worry about getting some copy where everything's ensleeved and everything's perfect. This is a game you buy and you play. And when you beat it up so badly, and my copy is pretty doggone awful. It's certainly playable, but I couldn't sell this with anything other than a can be played, rating as far as the condition of it. Complete. Yes, exactly. But that's all you need. Don't worry about this. This is a game you can throw in the trunk of your car and leave it there in the hot sun, and it's just not going to matter. I mean, you can pull it out. It's still going to be every bit as much fun, even with all the beating on it.
Are we supposed to have a werewolf, or a vampire Xander?
No,
No. Okay.
no, we just flip it over
Okay.
because
That's a good question because I couldn't find one.
there isn't a
I don't think
there isn't a vampire
supposed to be
Willow,
one.
there isn't a vampire.
Yeah, I don't think there's a vampire Willow or a vampire Buffy.
it seems-
Okay, so
seems-
it assumes that once you turn it over, that you know that
you just
character
know,
it's out
yeah.
there. Okay.
Yeah, because I
We were looking for
when-
a vampire Xander. 'cause he
When I
turned.
got the game, I did flip it over, and I found another one. I found one that had never been played. I mean, the dice hadn't been stickered or anything, and I ended up giving it away to a friend. So, I mean, like I said, you stumble onto these, and this is this again, Buffy the Vampire Slayer, the game. That's the name, the one with Buffy in the oval on the front, and from 2000. That's the one you want to be looking for. It's just a great little game. It's a great game to end your evening after you've played something, after you've played Mosaic, something big and heavy, or Arc Nova, and you would just want to kind of let it go and play something soft and light. This is a game to decompress with.
Our run went a little bit longer than they normally do. Probably because, you guys pretty effectively ran away with the game by hunting down and killing all of the minions.
Yeah. But we had to grind in order to do that.
By doing that, you just chewed through their health points. If you had done all that damage to the Master, then you would have just killed the Master.
Yep.
And you would have
Yeah,
killed
except
him.
the Master was over in the corner and not coming anywhere near us.
He couldn't move, all right?
Yeah,
he
and
was,
if you had rolled, I'm not saying it's your fault, but had you rolled the Master more often, you probably would have put up more of a hurt on us.
Probably.
Potentially could have ended the game that way. As well.
yeah.
Yeah, that would have shortened the game as well. That's
But
a good
I
point.
think you mentioned it. This is a light game, but it felt kind of a little bit heavy at times. I mean, it's not it wasn't. We weren't punchy. Hadn't just played a heavier game. So I don't know if it was the perfect game to play solo. Like you said, it's a great game to bring out after you've played something else.
I do
it's
think being punchier helps a bit because it's definitely a game where if you think really hard about it, you can get pretty heavy into like the tactical positioning, and I'm gonna avoid going to this spot because I could get stuck in a closet by a vampire showing up and just posing in front of me, right?
Posing.
Yeah.
Flexing the vampires.
I was thinking T-posing. Yeah. But, if you're thinking about that, maybe you don't go for that one weapon spot in a closet with no way out. And maybe you have to think really hard tactically about where you're going and where you're going to stand.
So, and at that point, because this is very easily a game you could bring out with beer on the table as well. And that's not something we do. But
I think that play style is not to this game's advantage. I think you do want to play it when you're playing it fast and loose.
Shoot from the hip, yeah.
Yeah, you're not going to sit here and think about what the best way to play is. I really enjoy playing as the bad guys. And playing as the bad guys, I've found
But it's like somebody
Shocker.
who wants to be dungeon master. It's like, oh my god,
yeah.
yes.
Well, that's I was about to say that there is an element of I'm going to play this not necessarily to win. Like I'm not trying to lose, but I'm not going to try and be as ruthless as possible because that wouldn't be fun for anybody.
You want to make the story.
I want there to be a good story
Larger
here.
than life.
And as funny as it would be to just like box Buffy into a corner on round
And
2
just pummel the heck
and
out
just
of her.
pummel her to death, that's not very interesting for anyone else.
Beaten down on a girl, Sam.
So I'm not going to do that. I'm going to go over here and collect some evil cards and pose and be menacing and,
Wait for the organ music.
and wait for the organ music to kick in, right? You can't do the thing until the third act. You got to wait.
Yeah. So I was just kind of looking through. Excuse me. So I was just kind of looking through the weapon cards because, again, we mentioned frag and ranged attacks and whatever. Mm-hmm. The rocket launcher is used against an adjacent enemy.
Yes, there are no ranged attacks.
That seems...
Well, that's because otherwise the rules become very complicated and you got to put line of sight and all that kind of crap all in. So,
but that one...
I think even the crossbow is a melee weapon.
It is, yes.
Well,
I had it
Yeah,
and broke it after
everything's
taking
melee.
one shot
all
with
of
it.
Sunnydale fits on like a 12 by 12 grid. So, I mean, these spaces actually have some distance involved in them. So, but it's real simple. Walk up to the person you want to attack and do your attack. Was it 15? 16 by 16.
Yeah, probably a square, so
Okay.
16
Well,
by
and then
16.
there's 4 here, so 17 on the...
And
Yeah,
it's
I don't
not
think
huge.
I've ever seen someone go in those spaces.
There's a couple of little cutouts. Like here, there's a cutout too, but like there's missing spaces here. So the board kind of works the
And there's a
hit
big
point
chunk.
tracks.
There's
They
a big
take chunks
chunk
out.
in the middle that you can't
is
go
gone,
into,
yeah.
and
Yeah, because the cards sit right on the map. So
it's a neat game. It's not a game you want to play super seriously, but it is fun.
yeah, and I think that's the key word. It's a game you're gonna have fun playing. So and it plays 3, 4, and 5 very, very well. All of them are good numbers for playing.
All right, great. So would you say this is a game for head down Euro gamers, or is this like an Ameritrashy game?
I feel like this was Ameritrash.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say
It's like, should we take,
as it should be.
should we take this to EuroQuest with us in a couple of weeks?
You know,
If you get them
Steven,
punchy
you
enough.
can, and what you'll discover is all of those chin-scratching Eurogamers will be looking over your shoulder instead of looking over the shoulder of the people that are playing Arc Nova, because this is a game that gets people laughing and yelling and rooting for one side or the other, and this will draw an audience.
So maybe we should take that with us.
We could do that.
Yeah. All right, so I think it's that point where we, do the rating thing.
Standard board game geek rating.
Yeah, I mean, of course, we're always going to use the standard board game.
But
I mean,
normally
we've
we
done it for
start
so
with
long.
the person who won.
We normally
Which-
do, but we were a team.
Yeah,
Team
but
pick
Willing
one.
was
the star.
So we have two options. We can either go with the person that lost, because only one person lost, really.
It's true.
Or we can go with the person that slapped that person into a loss.
To be fair, John was playing 2 characters,
It's
and I murdered
And
one
you
of
murdered
them.
You did murder one of them.
Actually, you sired one of them, and then we murdered him.
Yes.
So
Well,
yeah.
You forced us to murder him.
yes, that counts.
Yeah, why not? Let's go. Let's let John go first.
So this game is just a rollicking 7. You can get a copy for $5. I mean, look around. When you see it, grab it. Even if it's incomplete, you gussy up a couple of pieces. It's a great game to play. This is a player's game through and through. So don't worry about the quality of the copy. In fact, I'll be honest with you. The more beat your box looks, the more street cred you're going to have when you show up at WBC or Gen Con and you're playing it, just
honestly,
because that's how
true.
it looks.
That's true. This is a
Yeah.
game that feels like it should have some wear on it.
Yeah. And you look like somebody who's been gaming forever and not some newbie who just happened to show up and start discovering things.
That's right.
Yeah. Yeah, so there's a little bit of cred to having a ding and a dent in this box, and maybe with a frayed corner and some cards that got a little wear to them. So, yeah. If you're not playing it, you're doing it wrong.
Exactly. Yes. Good point.
Yep. Chris, you're up.
I played this game before. I remember it being a lot of fun. This game seemed to be a little bit more serious. Like I said, I think it would work better if it was after we had played a more serious game. But I did enjoy it. I did get to do some fighting as Buffy.
You just don't think we were punchy enough for it?
Yeah, I mostly got in kicks. Am I in the penalty box?
Yes.
All right.
Penalty box.
Well,
2 minutes.
I'm just going to give it a solid 7, and then I'll go sit in the penalty box. Bye.
All right. So this is just outrageous fun. Like, you're rolling dice, you're yelling at the other players, and you're yelling at the dice to do what you want them to do.
Yeah.
Like, from the moment you start rolling the dice to move your first character, it's nonstop fun from start to finish. There's, people complain about roll and move games, how, sometimes the dice can screw you and there's nothing you can do. And yeah, that might happen 1 or 2 times, but the board has enough going on and there are enough people on the board to where that just isn't the case. This is about the most fun that you can have from a 7 in a game, period. As we've said, thrift it, get it on eBay for cheap. Just get yourself a copy. Like we said, doesn't have to be pretty, just has to play. And yeah, Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Samuel, what do you got for us?
So this is a game I really enjoy playing the bad guy. It's just something I feel like I can really sink my teeth into.
Wow.
Wow, penalty box is getting awfully full right now, isn't it?
Are we not punchy enough? Are you sure?
But it's good fun, It's the turns are quick. Even if you roll crappy, you just kind of groan and hopefully you can draw a card somewhere, right? The dice are swingy, but it's not serious enough of a game for that to really be a huge bother. It's fun, Yeah. It's not a game that you play if you want to think really hard, but if you're wrapping up an evening or you just want to, get some laughs in and roll the dice. I can think of games that are as fun, but I'd be hard pressed to name something that I think is objectively better than this. So it's a good quality 7.
It does what it set out to do.
Exactly. Yes, does exactly what it set out to do. It's just a good game.
Yes, Buffy the Vampire Slayer, the game, Milton Bradley, 2000. Make sure there's another one that was like 2 years after this, and there's been a couple since then too.
It's just fun, it's just fun. I remember, I remember Kevin staking the master on turn 1 before.
All I remember, Sam,
that was funny,
is when Cody said, "Let's hurry up and finish this game of Root so we can get back to some Buffy."
Yeah,
that speaks volumes.
Says it all right there.
So I specifically chose the Master because he is actually a vampire, and I don't think any of the other ones are. The Judge might be a vampire, but it's
and there are like fan made scenarios as well.
Yeah,
gotcha.
So
I think
once you play through the 4, you can go on BGG and find dozens more.
The rest of them are kind of odd because like the mayor. Starts as the human mayor, and he just kind of hangs out on the board, and he can't die, but you can bully him until he gets his hands on the artifact that turns him into the demon mayor. And so when we ran that scenario, what happened was the mayor he started here, and he went over to this corner.
He starts in the mayor's office.
He starts in the mayor's office, and immediately went to the museum in the corner of the
around
map.
The corner, right? I mean,
and
a few spaces away.
Like, for half the game to get his grubby little hands on the artifact.
And kept failing.
And all of his minions got killed off, and the heroes kind of powered up and congregated around him. And he finally got the art, because he can't... I think he's the one who can't die until he actually gets the artifact, or the artifact is destroyed. And so he just got lucky, and the artifact was in that corner. And when he finally got it, he transformed, and you guys murdered him immediately. Just the next turn, he found the artifact, transformed, and exploded. It was great. Oh, man.
All right, well, Buffy the Vampire Slayer. It knows exactly what it is, and it executes it perfectly.
Yeah.
It didn't overstay its...
Nope. Don't say that.
No.
Actually, yes. Actually, I want you to physically get up and go to the penalty box.
Away from your
We're
microphone.
not playing this time for real.